Okay, so welcome to our presentation today. We are group 3 and we have 4 members, Nguyễn Thuỳ, Dương, Nguyễn Đặng, Hồng, Nhung, Ninh Đào Hà Ngân, and Thuỳ, Linh. So today we will invite you to one of the most famous cities in England. So let's visit Nottingham. Firstly, we will look through the table of contents. We will have 3 parts. Firstly is introduction. Secondly is geographical profile, and thirdly is the exhibition of cultural artifacts. So let's come to the first part in the introduction. So Nottingham has a unique place in British history and folklore, being the old home and hunting grounds of none other than Robin Hood. And besides that remarkable claim to fame, is a city with an extraordinary past and future. It was once famous for its lace and remains an important place in the fashion world, being the birthplace of designer Sir Paul Smith. And also it's a lively place with interesting things to see and do around every corner, and an award-winning public transport system to get you there. There's more to this East Midlands town than old buildings and men in times, though. The city centre is packed with shopping malls, sports stadiums, nightclubs, and restaurants. This town in every centre of England is perhaps best known for its association with the legend of Robin Hood. And the men in times are long gone, though. Today you'll find a modern city with a fantastic playhouse, ice hockey arena, and many shops and clubs. So the next we will going to look more about the geographical profile. Nottingham is situated on an area of low hills along the lower valley of River Trent, and is surrounded by the Sherwood Forest in the north, the Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire and Berkshire coalfield in the west, and the Trent and Belvoir Bays in the east and south. Well, about the weather and climate. The climate of Nottingham features a temperate maritime climate with relatively mild summers, cold winters, and abundant rainfall all through the year. Since 1960, rainfall and temperature records for the city have been kept in the Nottingham Weather Centre in Whitehall. There's also another weather station cooperating at the University of Nottingham's Agricultural Campus in southern Bonington. And Nottingham has an estimated population of 310,837, and it is projected to grow by at least 320,000 by 2019. The city's wider abundant area, including many suburbs, is the largest in the West Midlands and home to 729,977 people. The city has one of the UK's strongest populations. Residents' average age stands at just 34. And Nottingham began in the 6th century as a small settlement called Stoddard-in-Ham. The Anglo-Saxon word ham means village, and the word Inger means belonging to, and Notter was a man, so its name meant the village owned by Snorri. Gradually its name changed to Nottingham and just Nottingham. In 920, the English king recaptured Nottingham and he built a bridge across the Trent. By the 10th century, Nottingham was a busy little town, though with a population of only several hundred. The western limit of the town stood roughly where Westminster Gate is today. From the 10th century, Nottingham also had a mint. And next we will come to discover more about Nottingham in the 18th century. Well, in the early 18th century, Daniel Defoe described Nottingham as one of the most pleasant and beautiful towns in England. From the late 17th century, salt-gazed stonework was made in Nottingham, and in the 18th century, the hosier industry boomed, and there was also a lace industry, although it was quite small. And during the 18th century, Nottingham grew rapidly, and by the middle of the century, the population has passed 10,000. And by 1801, the year of their first cases, it exceeded 28,000, and by the standards of the time, Nottingham was a large and important town. For the well-to-do, it was elegant and gentle, although as always there were many poor people. In the 18th century, there was a piped water supply, although it was expensive and not many people could afford it. From the 1760s, oil lamps lit the streets, and the first theatre in Nottingham was built in 1760, and a general hospital was built in 1782.
So now I will be your tour guide, and let me show you around Nottingham of the 19th century. In this century, Nottingham continued to grow rapidly, especially after 1845 when a great deal of land around it was released for building, and Nottingham gained gas street lighting in 1819. However, like all towns in the early 19th century, Nottingham was a dirty and unsanitary place. There was a cholera epidemic in 1833, which killed about 330 people. However, life in 19th century Nottingham gradually improved. In the mid-19th century, the piped water supply was taken over by the corporation and was greatly expanded. After 1835, Nottingham had its first proper police force, and a new prison was built in 1846. Meanwhile, the railway first reached Nottingham in 1839. Not only that, the first public library in Nottingham opened in 1868, and University College was formed in 1881. And in the late 19th century, Nottingham Corporation created parks and recreation grounds. Nottingham County Football Club was founded in 1862, and finally, Nottingham Forest was founded in 1865, which we have previously showed you the picture of it. During the Industrial Revolution, much of Nottingham's prosperity was founded on the textile industry, and in particular, the city became an internationally important center for lace manufacture. So that's a brief about Nottingham in the 19th century. Now let's move forward 100 years, and we may follow Nottingham into the 20th century. So some remarkable tombstones in this century includes electric trams began running in Nottingham in 1901, and the last ones ran in 1936. Between 1922 and 1932, a dual carriageway was built around the city. And next, from 1928, Nottingham had a Lord Mayor and a new council house opened in 1929. In the 1920s and 1930s, Nottingham Council began building council houses. Many were built on new estate north of the city. And in the 1950s and 1960s, many more council estates were built in the north of the city, including estates at Bilborough, and another estate was built in the south of Clifton. Here you can see another construction during this period, which is the Nottingham University. It was founded in 1948. In the late 20th century, Nottingham continued to develop rapidly, and in 1952, a statue of Robin Hood by James Woodford was erected by the castle. and it soon became one of the iconic symbols of Nottingham until the present day. Also in the late 20th century, the main industries in Nottingham were textiles, tobacco, bicycles, pharmaceuticals, and finally printing. In 1998, Nottingham just made a unitary authority. So that's all about the key historical events as well as stages in Nottingham's development that I want to share with you. Now, Nottingham also makes a name for itself as a city of hundreds of unique cultural activities. Let's have a look at some of these interesting events with me now. The first festival that I want to introduce is St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick was a Christian missionary and is the patron saint of Ireland. Every year since 2000, St. Patrick's Day is celebrated in Nottingham on March the 17th. With a parade through the city centre and full line-up of entertainment, bands and Irish dancing in Old Market Square. And celebrations generally involve public parades and festivals, salads, and the wearing of green attire, or you can call it shamrocks. Next up is a festival that I believe tourists can't miss coming to Nottingham, the Nottingham Goose Fair. So it is an annual travelling fun fair held at the Forest Recreation Ground in Nottingham during the first week of October. And in recent years, there have been more than 400,000 visitors to Nottingham's fair annually. Now known for its fairground rides and attractions, Goose Fair started as a livestock and trade event with a reputation for its excellent cheese. And the name Goose Fair is derived from the thousands of geese that were driven from the Lincolnshire fens in the east of England to be sold in Nottingham at the fair each year. And almost 500,000 visitors flock to Nottingham's Goose Fair annually, and these days it is mostly famous for its fairground rides and games, boasting over 500 attractions, and some for thrill seekers and many that appeal to the whole family. And next, one more unique festival that our group bring to the GeoFest today goes by the name the Nottinghamshire Pride. So it is a registered charity in Nottinghamshire, England, and it organizes an annual LGBT Pride Festival with the same name held within the city of Nottingham, and this event usually takes place during July. Don't you know that the charity has stated that the purpose of Pride is to provide a safe focal point to bring together our community to celebrate our diversity and sense of pride, which for some people may be difficult in everyday life due to prejudice and injustice. This event usually consists of a day-long celebration, including a parade, stalls, arts, music, and other activities. Okay, so that's also the last cultural activities of Nottingham that I believe all of us should know about when coming to the city. So now let's move on to the next part of our presentation.
Now, let's gain some insight into the economic activity of Nottingham. Located in the Midlands, Nottingham is in a region responsible for over 20% of UK's total manufacturing capability. And of course, the main industry of Nottingham is undoubtedly tourism. Nottingham's heritage, spanning its 1,000-year history, makes up an important part of its cultural landscape. The city has more than 800 listed buildings, and Nottingham Castle and Wallington Hall each receive around 200,000 visitors every year. In 2015, 10 of the city's major cultural attractions generated a total of 1.87 million visitors. Overall tourism to Nottingham City in 2015 was 10.7 million. Tourism, including cultural tourism, contributes an estimated 466 million euros to Nottingham's economy. This alongside a vibrant events calendar taking place throughout the year, with a host of events including Nightlight, Splendor, The Riverside Festival, Goose Fair, and Nottingham's October Festival Month, all which ensure that Nottingham has something for everyone. There are also more than 2,300 registered creative and digital businesses in Nottinghamshire, mainly concentrated in the city. So, that is the end of the geographical profile of Nottingham. Now, please follow me to the exhibition of artifacts about this wonderful city. Welcome to our exhibition of cultural artifacts today. The name of the exhibition today is Lost in Lace. So, when it comes to Nottingham, maybe the first thing that springs to our minds is the legend of the hero Robin Hood. Yet, today, we would like to introduce to you a different Nottingham, a Nottingham with a rich story of lace making. Actually, for over 100 years, Nottingham had been the lace making capital of the world. For as long as people could remember, lace was made from silk and woven by hand. As a result, it was expensive and the preserve of the wealthy only. As part of the Industrial Revolution, Nottingham inventors and entrepreneurs sought a way of producing lace that everyone could buy, and then they completely changed the nature of the industry. So, in today's exhibition, we would like to show you the excellent machine-made lace of Nottingham. First, let's take a look at two main types of lace ever produced in the city, namely knitted lace and twisted lace. The very first machine-made lace was knitted from a single thread through mechanical alterations to the knitting frame, or more commonly known as the stocking frame. As you can see on the screen, this is the stocking frame. And point lace, as it was called, was knitted from the 1760s until it was succeeded by improved laces in the 1820s. One such improvement was warp lace, invented in the 1790s. This unites the loop of the knitting frame with the warp of the weaver's loom, and had the advantage over point net in that, although knitted, it only lettered if damaged and not unraveled. An improvement, the rastral warp lace machine, was invented in the 1840s. And here on the screen, we have the rastral warp lace machine on the left, and on the right, this is the warp lace made from this machine. So the second type of machine-made lace is that in which threads are twisted together to make lace in the same way as the hand lace makers. The twisted machines have been described as the most complicated textile machines in the world, and the lace machine neither unravels nor letters if damaged. The very first machine of this type was a bobbinet machine, invented by John Heathcote in 1808, and was followed by a plethora of different twisted lace machines. And the most important of these to the British lace industry being the lever's machine, invented in 1813, and the curtain lace machine, invented in 1846. These machines divided twist lace making into three sections: planet, made on machines based on Heathcote's principle; lace for home furnishings, made on curtain lace machines; and lace for garments, made on lever's machines. And here on the screen, we have the lever's machine and the lever's lace made from this machine. So, now let's take a look at some of the excellent lace samples and lace products of Nottingham that we have collected. The very first lace sample we want to show you here is the lace curtain panel Don Quixote. And as you can see, this is the white cotton exhibition curtain made on the curtain lace machine. It has the design of scenes from the very famous Spanish novel Don Quixote in the 17th century. It featured a knight on horseback. Here you can see a knight on horseback with his companion farmer on a donkey. And it was made by Simon May, lace manufacturers of Nottingham. So, when first published, Don Quixote was usually interpreted as a comic novel, and after the French Revolution, it was better known for its central ethic that individuals can be right while the society is quite wrong, and was seen as a story of disenchantment. Actually, in the 19th century, it was seen as a social commentary, and many critics came to view the work as a tragedy in which Don Quixote's idealism and nobility are viewed by the post-chivalric world as insane and are defeated and rendered useless by common reality. By the 20th century, the novel had been considered as one of the foundations for modern literature. The scene was beautifully demonstrated on displays, and this piece of art is now on display at Nottingham Museum.
So the second artifact that we would like to present to our class is the Battle of Britain lace panel. Take as your inspiration one of the most famous events of World War II, when the Royal Air Force successfully defended Britain against a sustained aerial attack by the German Luftwaffe that was intended to break the country and prepare the way for invasion. Combine this with decades of design and production know-how, then throw in 26,000 miles of Egyptian cotton thread, and maybe you can't help but create a little bit of magic. The Battle of Britain lace panel is a special thing indeed. Nottingham firm Dobson, Brown and Co. produced this large panel of curtain lace in the mid-1940s as a commemoration of the Battle of Britain. The design from photographs took 2 years, and making the chocolate pattern cards another 15 months. What may not be immediately obvious about the panels from a photograph is their size. Each one is a whopping 15 feet, around 4.5 meters long, and 5 feet 6 inches, which is 1.6 meters wide. The scenes and content were designed by Harry Crost, who, at the age of 73, had been designing lace for almost 60 years at the time. The images tell the story of the defense of Britain and the attack of Luftwaffe on London and South-East England during the summer and autumn of 1940. In doing so, the panels continue a tradition of narrative textiles embodied by objects. The design is full of symbolic references. The content is divided into 3 columns with horizontal bars at the top and the bottom. The company's own details feature across the top, and the prominent positioning of their current brand, Delbeda, suggests that the panels serve a promotional purpose as well as a commemorative purpose. Harry Cross is name-checked at the upper left, while the names of draftsmen, including J. W. Harold and W. R. Jackson, appear at the right. Another artifact that you may find intriguing is the freelance cap. Thought to be the only one still in existence, this freelance cap or headdress of white linen has a tall handmade English or Flemish bobbin lace frill. A wide frame was worn to support the lace above the head, at the time the height of fashion, from 1690 to 1710. A frelange or a fontage is a high headdress popular during the turn of the late 17th century and early 18th centuries in Europe. Technically, fontages are only part of the assembly, referring to the ribbon bows which support the frelange. The frelange was supported by a wide framework called the commode. In England, the style was popularly known as a top knot, versions of which were worn by ladies of all ranks. from the queen downwards to kitchen maids, making it an easy target for satire and criticism. The next artifact would definitely capture your attention, which is the fan. Made around 1880 to 1890, the fan has silvered and pierced marble upper sticks with Brussels needle-made lace of white linen and painted with white crepe leaf. And the final artifact, which was elaborately made, is the shawl. This shawl has twisted pattern lace, made by William Vickers and Son of Weekday Crossed in Nottingham, 1870. This shawl is of exhibition quality, while the complex design includes realistic flowers and maybe French. This type of lace has been integrated in every facet of life, including accessories, clothes, and etc. One prominent example of this shawl is specifically for royal babies. Per tradition, the Prince of Cambridge looked like the definition of perfection, sweetly wrapped in a white hat and sun shawl, as can be seen on the slide. If the intricately woven swaddle looked familiar, Prince George and Princess Charlotte once appeared in something very similar. The Duke and the Duchess of Cambridge also wrapped siblings in the blanket from G.H. Hatch and Son for their introductions to the world. The family-owned company Shorts factory has produced luxury knitted lace shawls, scarves, and blankets in Nottingham, England for more than 100 years. Not only did G.H. Hutt make the shawls used for most recent royals, but it also presented a special blanket to Prince William when he was a baby. So, to recapitulate, although the great industrial production of lace in Nottingham has largely gone, as economic changes have moved the industry overseas, Nottingham still has many individual craftspeople who work in lace and their works are highly prized. Nottingham has continued its centuries-old industry with modern inspiration and has adjusted to more modern taste. Nottingham museums continue to collect lace to enrich its collection of Nottingham-inspired textiles, and Lost in Lace celebrates and showcases the legacy of this material to the world. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you guys have a nice day.